Stalward in automation and aerospace, supplier to ISRO, and a mentor to next generations. The amazing Rajshekhar Uchil. Thank you so much for joining me on the MoHOPE podcast, sir. So I want to start with your story. You have a wealth of experience in both automation and aerospace. And what inspired you to make a career in technology, sir?
I joined instrumentation maybe February 85.
1985.
As a fresh engineer from Suratkal.
NITK Suratkal, yes.
Unless you understand the process. And AI ML engineers a beautiful diagram made. And then suddenly when you start looking at it, the symbols are wrong or the direction of the fluid is coming in, the arrow says out. Because the person who designed it does not know the process knowledge. There is a particular way that a boiler functions or a vibration accelerometer functions. So it's difficult to also put all that into AI.
Right, yes. Welcome the amazing Rajshekhar Uchil, Stalward in automation and aerospace, supplier to ISRO, and a mentor to next generations. Thank you so much for joining me on the MoHOPE podcast, sir. So I want to start with your story. You have a wealth of experience in both automation and aerospace. And what inspired you to make a career in technology, sir?
I joined instrumentation maybe February 85.
1985.
As a fresh engineer from Suratkal.
NITK Suratkal, yes.
Yeah, that time it was KREC. This was company was my first job when I started as a fresh engineer. So then it slowly started instrumentation, and we were going to at that time sales to all the top technological institutions in Bangalore. I was the sales engineer in Bangalore. So Indian Institute of Science, ISRO, NAL, HAL. You realize also over a period of time that these institutions, one of the biggest things that they are all scientists. So they expect a very high degree of professionalism as well as tech knowledge. For them, if you want to sit for 3 hours and discuss how a piezoelectric crystal works, it's nothing for them. They'll be very happy to understand that. So
it's a very technical role.
Yes, so that's the way that they work. And then I slowly understood that, yes, I was putting on technical proficiency. I not only was I looking at my own office, but I was looking at other offices in Chennai and occasionally even visit to my head office in Bombay also. My manager at that time used to encourage me to make quotations for other offices also in terms of the technical support.
What were you selling, sir?
I was selling instrumentation for noise and vibration right from that time.
Noise and vibration. This is for vehicles to space.
Yeah, I mean, the space was one of the many industries. Aerospace was obviously being in Bangalore, which is the aerospace capital of India at that time. So you had HAL, NAL, ISRO. I also used to cover Kerala at that time. So it was amazing to visit VSSC, LPSC. In fact, one of the first projects that I worked on was the multiple input, multiple output modal excitation system. It was the first system installed in India way back in 87 or 88 or so. This is for the 1/6 scale down model of the PSLV. It was an amazing experience.
What did it do? The machine that was installed?
Mechanical testing. We were doing the structural testing of the scale down model before the entire model got placed. And then also at that time, today it was you do everything on the computers. At that time, 40 years back, people were doing this with the manual control, almost like an oscilloscope. People also used to look at Nastran or ANSYS, whatever was there, in a very primitive scale, looking at comparison on almost like 2 graphs on 2 oscilloscopes and all that. It was an experience staying there for, I think, almost 10 days at Vallemalai, which was almost a jungle at that time. I don't know how the people.
This is near Trivandrum.
Yes. So this is 25 kilometers away from Trivandrum. So that is where the ISDTF, which was the structural design test facility for the PSLV. So I was there along with 3 people from Denmark. And, one of the things that you also realize when you go there, here in India, there is so much of an hierarchy between the ITI and the Polytechnic and the engineer. So we as engineers think that, we are at the top level. Someone at the ITI level is simply joining some 2 wires together. And we are the elite stuff, and we don't touch all that. One of the most amazing experiences I really had, we were at the final stages of installing this huge system in VSSC, and there was some problem with the oscilloscope. We were not getting the exact Lissajous figures. So we were 4 of us or 5 of us from my company, and we had about a dozen scientists from VSSC all trying to wonder, how we solve this. And suddenly this engineer who came from Denmark, he says, go to panel number 5, open this particular PCB, change the resistor from say 10 ohms to 50 ohms or so. I mean, he was standing 3 feet away from the panel, and he says, just do this. So VSSC people also were wondering, okay, nothing is happening. So let's do it. We did it, and the Lissajous graphs came absolutely perfectly. And everyone in VSSC, right up to maybe the directors, are wondering, is he a magician that he stands there and just says, change this resistor? They said, who's this guy? Is he a magician or something? So then the other 2 people said, no, he is the electronics engineer who actually designed the whole system. So he knows each and every resistor and capacitor there. This was 40 years back. So you did not have an IC which did 5,000 functions. You had, for each thing, you had a resistor, capacitor, which you had to change to get the RC value and all that. And this man just stands there and says, change this resistor. And then someone asked us away from the crowd, what's this man's qualification? I mean, is he a PhD or something? They said, no, by Indian standards, you would call him an ITI. I mean, so you can just imagine those guys were shocked. He says, I mean, for us, he's some like one technician. And
this ITI person, sir, actually built the whole system.
I mean, he's the one who designed who did the actual soldering and everything. So in that case, he's worked on the system, while the theoretical guy and the top guy looked at the system. This guy has done the hands-on. So it's like,
No, but in today's day and age, for someone who is aspiring for a career in either automation with AI or aerospace and space exploration after that, do you think a long education like an engineering degree, PhD, all that is required, or can this be self-learned?
I mean, self-learning is always, the engineering degree is always good. It's always good to have, because when you go through engineering, you and I have gone through the grind of 4 years or 5 years, lots of the fundamentals get clear. And also the fact that, when you stay in a hostel, and that's one of the important things that I say, that when we stayed in a hostel, we had 1,000 people from all over India staying together. So you have multiple states, multiple religions, various habits and all that. So there's sort of this bonding which develops, and that's
what is outside home. You're right, sir. First time outside.
You have home. A true multicultural background when we stay in these hostels like Suratkal. And in our time, it was, a batch of 250 had 125 students from all over India, 125 from Karnataka and 125 from the rest of India. So correct. You mix with all the states people, you have caste, creed, everything together. And so therefore, when you also go into the profession and when you start working, you get this appreciation of working with different communities and castes and creeds. You have been working there. Also, the fact that even earlier I was brought up in Bhilai, in a steel city, which again, you had people from all over the country working together. So there was no question of caste or creed or religion. So you have
tell us a little bit about your school days, sir. Where were you born and what inspired you to do engineering?
I was born in Mangalore, but then, yes, I studied my entire schooling in Bhilai. It was a small place in MP. No one would have even known of it at that time. I go to many functions at that time. I still remember during school days. And someone asks, where are you? No, I'm in this place from Bhilai. It's one of India's many steel plants. You will have to search for it somewhere in the, map. In fact, to the extent that even in functions and all, my father used to be referred, oh, he is that engineer who came from Bhilai. That's all.
Awesome, awesome. So he was working in a steel plant. So your father was working in a steel
my
plant.
father joined the Bhilai steel plant somewhere in 1959 and worked there till 84. So I studied in school there. After that,
so your father must have been a big inspiration in you picking up engineering.
Well, he was an engineer by himself. He was a chemical and metallurgical engineer from the Indian Institute of Science. At those days, it was a tremendous achievement. He was working in many research establishments and then finally got this job in the steel plant where he served.
Fantastic. So, sir, for the next generations, parents with kids who are choosing careers and people who are considering some form of getting involved in aerospace, space exploration, because there is a life sciences college in Manipal that is considering starting a space biology course. So things like this, even outside engineering, to somehow get involved in space travel, how would you encourage someone? What direction can you give them?
Let's look at it. 35, 40 years back, people knew only two professions, engineering or medical. So, and yes, a couple of my colleagues who retired today at top professions were the exceptions to the rule. One of my own classmates, these two people took up arts and commerce, but then retired as very high professions. One retired as an IAS officer, another is an advisor to the government of India today. But then the 99% were either engineering or medical. So we took engineering, joined there. But then today, I would say that 40 years later, it's open. You can be at any level attached. It's a question of what your interest is. You could be a statistician and you could look at statistics and say, yes. You could look at arts. You could look at a holistic education. Yes, space, the aerospace is a fascinating field. I've been in that field as a supplier to the satellites and rocket industry, and it is amazing to work with them. The question is,
sir, why is India still not? Why is India still? How can India get ahead, like with technology like reusable rockets? How far is India from reusable rockets?
Well, we have gone a really long way, but I'm not a specialist. There are other people. I'm sure you may be knowing other people who are in ISRO, for example. Our old college people, alumni are there.
But you've been in the industry for decades, no, sir. So even from a close look, how do you feel that we can progress? What can the younger generation do? You also mentioned ISRO has a outreach facility. You can mention that also. INSAT or Insight.
Maybe 30, 35 years back, aerospace was only ISRO NAL. I mean, if you had to have a job, it would be a government job and it would only be these two companies and then maybe HAL. It slowly, on various circumstances and everything have opened up the private industry also to ISRO. You also have the world's biggest aerospace companies partnering with India. For example, the NISAR satellite today is an amazing partnership of NASA and ISRO. And today you have launches from India. India launches some of the largest satellites in the world. I think the largest, yesterday's announcement said the maximum number of satellites have been launched from India. So you have an amazing platform. Today, you can see a few days back, our Prime Minister, inaugurated the new Skyroot facility in Hyderabad. So you have the private industry today coming up in a very, very large scale. I mean, Skyroot and Agnikul are two of the amazing examples of aerospace in India, but then many others. I mean, Dijantara is there, and I would, don't take names in the sense that there are so many, I don't want to miss out anyone. And today you go, I was at the Bangalore Tech Summit a few weeks back, and the number of people who are there in all technologies which can be applied anywhere, right from small startups to huge companies everywhere. And today, one of the things that I have seen in aerospace is it's an absolutely incredible multidisciplinary field. So as you said, astrobiology, growing plants in space, or seeing how an animal survives in space. There was something that I think Moss has survived on one of the space satellites, and even the scientists were amazed how did it survive. So you have one of the first animals which went to space. It did not come back, but it was a dog, Laika from Russia. They couldn't bring it back. But then, so experiments are always there. And today, with opening up of the technology, opening up of the markets in India, you could work for a few years, maybe in ISRO, and start your own company, maybe on satellite analysis, maybe on rocketry, maybe on fuel design. So the market.
Couple of questions, sir. Couple of questions. First of all, ISRO has a outreach of knowledge sharing for private companies. No, what is it called?
They have the in-space facility, which is
in-space facility.
And the second thing.
Okay.
So you could today, as a startup, apply to ISRO to use their facilities. You could have an NDA with them, because the facilities that ISRO set up over the last 40 years must have cost $1 million. I, as a startup, can't afford it. But now the new policies allow me to use that facilities from ISRO initially till I get my own foot standing on the ground. And I can take assistance from ISRO scientists because they have been learning it for the last 40 years. So that's the way.
How difficult is it? How difficult is it for someone to get off the ground? Now, even if someone uses personal funds for just to start, there has to be significant amount of capital that comes into making a space exploration company. How can someone young access such capital?
I basically say that there are a lot of venture capital companies in that, but I am not a business viewpoint in that. I would not be the right person. Let me be very frank. I'm not an entrepreneur in that sense that I could say that, go to venture capital 1 or venture capital 2. But I do know today that a huge amount of venture capital is going into the space industry, and also the fact that you have the giants of India. You have the L&Ts and the Godrej and the Bharat Forge all into this also. So when you look at the fact that you have the government and you have these private companies working together in the aerospace world, and then you have startups which have now this, proved, like Skyroot and Agnikul, that you can be really big players. And then, as I said, I may miss out names, so I don't want to take specific names, but there are lots of space companies which have grown up, made satellites for India, or launching it abroad from anyone else. But
Tell us about automation, sir. Tell us about automation. You're an expert in automation, and you have worked in automation way before AI became the buzzword. So tell us about automation and how AI is changing the landscape in automation.
Well, AI and ML is a tool. Please understand that it's like, you take 100 doctors together and you grind their intelligence, and that intelligence in a computer can look at an ECG and say that, yes, this is the problem. But what have you done? You have just sort of culled all the knowledge of these and put it together. Same way as an engineer, you go back to your, the old car technicians who could just drive your car around. They might be uneducated, but they could just drive your car for 10 minutes and tell you, look, there's a problem in the clutch, there's a problem in the gearbox. That comes because of the fact that, they have driven hundreds of cars, and by sheer intuition sort of, which you take a new guy who might be an automobile engineer and a PhD, but still he will require 100 tools to do it. So AI and ML has made life easier. Yes, but it should be treated still as a tool, not a be-all and an end-all. Students should realize that you have to have domain knowledge. If you are a chemical engineer and you want to use AI and ML for chemical processing, first you understand the process. Let's say you want to make a PID diagram, and there's lots of articles on LinkedIn and other media where any of these, Gemini or something, made a PID diagram, but there were fundamental mistakes on the direction of the flow. Now, you as a process engineer have to understand the significance of that arrow. But when it says
sanity check, absolutely.
You can't do that unless you understand the process. And an AI ML engineer says, beautiful diagram made. And then suddenly when you start looking at it, the symbols are wrong, or the direction of the fluid is coming in, the arrow says out. Because the person who designed it does not know the process knowledge. There is a particular way that a boiler functions or a vibration accelerometer functions. So it's difficult to also put all that into AI. A very simple thing. We sell sensors to ISRO and they look at the weight. They were talking of a sensor which just, looks at 1 gram, and they said, we will disqualify you if it is 1.5 grams. And we said, why? We said, understand the fact. A, we are putting this on PCBs on the satellite. So and if I have 100 of these sensors on board, each of them is 0.5 grams heavier. And then you have 50 grams more. The moment your weight increases, your propellant increases, everything else increases. So it's a cascading effect. So when I say 1 gram, I mean 1 gram, full stop. So, these things the AI/ML will not be able to figure out. They will say, okay, it doesn't matter. We can do a little optimization. You also consider loading on a structure. AI and ML will not understand that when you put 20 accelerometers, each weighing 10 grams on a structure, you are talking of 100 grams extra, which will affect the dynamics of the structure. These are practical examples.
Correct, sir. So point is noted that domain knowledge is more important than actually thinking that tools can be the be-all and end-all of it. Correct. But I'm interested for the audience more in automation. Now think companies like Boston Dynamics, Tesla are coming up with robots for everyday use. Do you think something like that can happen in India in the next 10 years where en masse?
You have robots today working in India at absolutely any level. So you're talking of, surgery with robots also being done in India. Your pick and place in the production. Today, you're talking of welding, for example. Welding in aerospace is so complex and so difficult. I would think that robots might be able to do it in a much easier way. And the space atmosphere is hostile. You are not sure even today after 70 years, what is the effect of space on man? Maybe if you can simulate that on metal characteristics and then send a robot to do a walk in space, it might be, less dangerous for him.
So you are saying that robots, sorry to interrupt, but robots you said are already in use in large scale in India, which is very fascinating. Can you tell us some companies building robots in India so the younger people can look to work there?
If you look at simple production facilities, pick and place facilities, you have Adverb, which is one of the largest companies in India. You have
what is it called, sir?
Adverb, ADDVRB. I think it's a Reliance company somewhere in Delhi.
Okay.
Very large.
Pick and place, was it?
Huh?
Pick and place, was it? What is that one you mentioned before Adverb?
You have items to move around in a factory. So instead of asking a human being.
Now I understand. Yes.
So it's like asking a coolie to lift a box from shelf 1 to shelf 2, and then he comes back. He gets tired. You require more manpower. There is a load, which the amount of man that you can't ask a coolie to work for more than 6 or 7 hours. He gets tired. The robot doesn't get tired. It can go up. You can program it to say, climb up, remove this from this shelf and keep it back in this shelf. And it just do. Robots are excellent when it comes to repetitive functions which will really fatigue out a human being. You can program it and it goes from shelf to shelf. So you have, AGVs, UAVs, all of and AGV is nothing but a robo actually, which goes around on particular paths. And today, the new AGVs, you don't even require a shop floor. It can go around on the factory compound. Okay. So instead of a human being carrying, 500 kgs of load from shop 1 to shop 2, you can put it in this cart and give him the direction. It goes there.
Okay. So how far are we from automating building roads in India? Building infrastructure, buildings and roads?
I mean, it's a question of at each level you have automation. Today, a simple machine, and this was even 20 years back, your concrete plants or your tarring machines. You have some of the biggest companies which build these machines today in India to make your concrete, ready-made concrete, your ready-made cement, your tar. All this is today automated. It's no longer manual. You look at today, sweeping the roads. You have today machines which are doing the sweeping for you. You no longer want to, take manual power. Instead of, using a man for that, you have, there is work going on even for, cleaning manholes where people die today. They are talking of using robots for that. You have robots today to clean your facade of your building, your huge glass buildings. You could employ a robot to clean it. instead of asking a man to climb up and, hang by a sling and wipe it with a hand.
Correct.
You could ask a
Correct.
robot to do it.
But safety is one issue, sir. But I've noticed that construction in general happens slower in India than, say, for example, Dubai. So what can we do?
I'm not a civil engineer, but let's look at the fact that, you have a democracy and you are ruled by certain parameters. You very well know that a neighboring country like China, if it decides that it doesn't want a city like Beijing tomorrow, and it says Beijing will not be on the map, it will not be. It will not be on the map after 5 years. I still remember I went to Shanghai some years back and they showed us a small place and they said this was a village 10 years back. And then China decided that it would be a trade center and that's it. And the village, doesn't exist. It became one of the largest trade, maidans in China or something. In India, you try cutting a road, there'll be 25 people with a stay order and cost, and unless this is done,
because the history. But what is the way around that, sir? What is the way that India can progress and have things like smart cities and neighboring villages both as self-sufficient communities?
One of the reasons why today, let's accept, why does everyone come to the town is because you see earning opportunities in town. One of the examples, and I'm not speaking from the political viewpoint, but say this initiative that the Karnataka government has taken, and let me be clear, it is not from a political viewpoint, but they're saying brand beyond Bangalore. So if you have a factory in, say, Hubli, in Dharwad, in Bangalore, why would I come to Bangalore to work? So if you are giving incentives, you are giving housing and population. If I was staying in Yelahanka, say, and I had good hospitals, good school, I have not come to Bangalore at all. So if I'm talking of the initial one was satellite cities around Bangalore, another one was developing all these places. So Bangalore, is developing hugely now. All these software, hardware companies, everything has gone there. Mysore today with the fantastic connectivity to Bangalore, it might be faster to come from Mysore to Bangalore than to go from Whitefield to Kengeri. I mean, yes, the metro is there. Otherwise, you try going by car, it could take you 2 hours. In 1.5 hours, I can reach Mysore. Yes. So if I'm, say, working in the global village in Mysore Road, I can as well stay in Mysore and commute every day. It will be less, hazardous for me. Or the other way around. So if I have a office, if I'm working in Infosys in Mysore, I might find it easier to go to Infosys from Kengeri and come back rather than coming from, say, Kengeri to Yelahanka. It will be less tiring. So, but if you have to have the encouragement, there's a huge, incentives coming up saying that you put all these things together. It also then says that what we call as initially the backward areas in Karnataka would really develop today. And these are places which may have excellent other infrastructure. Mangalore, has an excellent infrastructure with schools, colleges, coasts, airports. So you get there. Companies like Infosys have gone there. Bose, one of the biggest speaker companies, has an R&D today in Mangalore. So why not? So in the same way, Mysore, now Hubli, Dharwad, with the airports and the rails.
But Karnataka, yes, sir. Karnataka and India at large, for accelerated progress, is the power in leadership or in technology? Now, leadership, both government and private, but do we need like a technological breakthrough? Because the robots can solve the labor problem and probably elevate standard of living. So is better technology access more important, or is it a leadership issue?
I think it's also both. At the same time, I would not discount the fact that some of the technologies that we have developed in India are an example of what the world should follow. Let's look at it without, again, I repeat, not a political angle. We have had elections for the last so many years with voting machines. And today, with a 1 billion population, you finish voting within half a day, and by 3 o'clock, the results come out. I mean, that's
really
which other country you have. One of the, we are the 7th largest country in terms of geography. We have the largest population in the world. So out of 1.4 billion, maybe 1 billion voting, and still you finish all this counting absolutely, to the perfect one vote, and you do it. You have Aadhaar, which is again an incredible identity for anyone in the
Absolutely.
country. You have
Absolutely.
UPI, which I still think is the incredible that a small beggar a small fruit seller on the road who doesn't know how to read and write, she can flash a card and say, "Sir, payment madi." And
Yeah,
in
plug into the
Canada, she gets
system.
an announcement, "Sir, निम्न account there, ₹100 हो गए." It's so
Money
simple.
has gone to account. Yes,
So I mean,
absolutely. It's
she
really
doesn't even
amazing.
know that she may not even know to read and write, but she's got the announcement that money has come. So maybe someone in the house. So I mean, so what we have done is overcome technology and brought this to the you know bottom of the pyramid. So it's not that India lacks behind in technology. We have developed technology which today, whether you talk of it in defense or space or atomic energy, is equivalent to anywhere in the world.
That's so nice to hear. So nice to hear from a veteran like you who has been in technology, automation, aerospace for decades and decades. To see a bright future for India, because the way India has progressed, people say that, there are so many problems. But like Mukesh Ambani said, India is a land of a billion opportunities, and that is the story. So, but tell me more about automation, sir. Now, someone who wants to automate some process, some repetitive process somewhere in the chain of either business or something that is uh, in purely service, where does that person start? Say as a teenager or as the parents of a teenager, automation and AI, where can this child start learning
I
and
mean, the question
implementing?
is today, automation touches all our lives. You get into a car today, and today, from the old Ambassador, which was, absolutely with manual and gears, you have a car today, which is for all practical purposes, a computer on four wheels. It can, I can sit in my house and switch on tell the car, switch on the car, switch on the AC, switch on the music and all that. So you are now talking to absolutely a smart car. And I'm not talking of the Teslas and the Waymos still. I mean, that's still more advanced for India, but all your cars today have a tremendous amount of technology built in. And if the student, especially at the school or even after he goes to college, discovers that this is technology that can be used and it is used by the common man. I'm talking of a car or scooter, which almost today everyone uses. I'm talking of the mobile. The mobile today is, for all practical purposes, a supercomputer compared to, you take a mobile like the 3310 and you take today's new mobiles, it's literally a supercomputer. Is there anything that you can't do with the mobile? It can read and write, it can wake you up at 6 in the morning, it can send your emails, everything. So this is again technology which has touched our lives, made it simple for anyone to use. So what we are looking at is engineers is use technology, but see that when the end user in mind. You are not an ISRO scientist who's going to use this mobile. It might be a 6-year-old child, or it might be like someone on the road, like the UPI vendor. So you have to make a easy to use at the same time without compromising on facilities. On the other hand, when you go to space and defense, there's no compromise. If it says 1.001 degree, it is that. There is no change. You do not compromise on that because you know that the cost repercussion of that. You send a satellite into space which costs billions of dollars. You can't afford to, nitpicky about 5 paisa here and there. You cannot do that. And I know that unless the cable is tested, we don't, accept it, because you can't go to satellite, you can't go to a space and repair a satellite. So it has to be
Correct, correct. So your point is taken. So the end customer who we are serving has to be kept in mind. Now, for all the people who feel young and who are looking to really push themselves in some way and get excited about either humans going to Mars or building a base in the moon, how can someone like that get involved in space exploration and aerospace?
I mean, look at the very simple thing. You see eclipses regularly. I mean, which is again a very common astronomical phenomenon. Today, you have the planetarium which shows this. It shows you all the technology behind how you can see the eclipse and what actually goes on when the eclipse is done. So that the Earth coming between the sun and the moon or anything of that. And then today, I know that the Department of Space encourages even schools and colleges to visit. The best example is today, if you see a launch in Sriharikota and you say 5,000 people inside the auditorium and you have maybe 5 lakh people seeing it on TV all over the world. So what is it that interest? You sit there and you listen to the countdown and the ISRO scientists saying stage 1, okay, stage 1 bookings. So you see both. You see in public both the success and the failures, but you see
where can the public access this, sir?
I mean, any launch today from Sriharikota is broadcast on all channels, and you can see it even there. If you can apply early as engineering colleges, I would say that please look at the launch schedules 4 days before, sharp publishers that you can come to their office or their auditorium. Obviously not the launch bed, but you can go to their auditorium where including the chairman of ISRO and others will be sitting there and see the launch pad. So, or you can sit in the comfort of your room and see it on your mobile or your laptop. I see it for all launches. It's a tremendous excitement to see. So the question is today, they are open to visit. It's a question of you wanting to go there. Yes. As a college, I think you can, write to ISRO, write to NAL, write to HAL. Maybe now I would say even write to Skyroot and Agnikul and say that, can we come and see your facilities? You have Airbus and Boeing today, who are two of the largest global players. They have R&D in Bangalore. So I don't know, maybe after a few years, they might allow you to come and see what's going on in their facility. You have large fabrication companies. You have L&T, Godrej, who are making BEML, HAL, who are all doing things for the space. And many of them, you can see their videos, their interviews. Maybe they will allow you to visit their shop floor, yes, and have an idea of the complexity that goes on to build, right from a nut and bolt, which is so critical.
Correct.
So, to an entire rocket.
Most of these companies or even government organizations that are involved in aerospace or space exploration at some capacity are also involved in defense. Now, India's and in general around the world, defense spending is keeping on increasing with whatever reasons because of practical safety, security issues. But what can the younger generation do to shift this focus towards going to space and not fighting each other?
I mean, the question is, you also look at the other way around. There are technologies today in space and defense which have now come to the civilian industry. There was an example, I think, right when APJ was working in defense, and they developed a valve along with the Chittatrunal Institute, which is used for cardiac. So, I mean, many of these technologies in the space and defense are now spun off to the civil industry also. So it's not that, it remains exclusively to them. Also, the fact that what they have brought out in their R&D then goes to production. So you have a huge boost in the technology when you are making something which is so sophisticated, and now you are making it on a mass scale. So people can get excited, and the advantage that all this today is an incredible multidisciplinary. I mean, you have fuel in the rockets, which is a chemical engineer. You will have the material, which is absolutely a metallurgical engineer's nightmare. Obviously, computer science, wireless, electronics, mechanical. You have to put up a port somewhere. You have to have a civil engineer who has to test the soil and find out whether the rocket can take place, what is the load, what is the load bearing capacities, how deep can the foundations go. So, and all these people, believe me, when we go for bidding in ISRO, you have 35 people on the panel from multiple disciplines who ask you everything from A to Z. So, and then of course, now the other things, like you said, life in space. So you might be a zoologist, you might be a botanist, whatever, but you'll be interested in know whether a plant can grow in space. So the body of it.
How international is the collaboration opportunity, sir? So some of my students are not Indian nationals and they're outside India, many in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and some in the far west and Europe. But what are the opportunities for someone who is not Indian to collaborate with India and do some good work with our people.
I mean, if you look at the developed countries, absolutely no issues because, India has partnerships with ESA, with NASA, everyone. India also helps. And I think Prime Minister himself announced that we are putting up satellites for all the SAARC countries and all that. So also, the information of this satellite comes down to the common man. So if you are putting, let's say, you can be a teacher who's teaching to a primary school somewhere in Africa, and you put a satellite terminal there. So you are bringing technology to a godforsaken village in Africa, sitting in India. You could be taking a class in India, but the satellite terminal is in some village in Africa. You have helped.
Now, this satellite terminal, is it through Starlink or?
I mean, you go back to India doing this way back for the UGC classes. So it's all outside.
So how much does it cost, sir? Say that I want to go to some tribal village.
I'm not sure of the cost, but I do know that even people are using it for tuition classes also. You can put a satellite terminal in your house and you can run a class from Bangalore. And the satellite terminal could be in a village.
Awesome. So it sounds very affordable.
Yeah, I mean, it's relative, but then yes, it's not a multi-billion-dollar investment that you have to take.
But it sounds like it's in tens of thousands of rupees. Am I correct in assuming it's in tens of thousands of rupees?
I'm not a commercial man, but yes.
Okay. But I'm aware that Starlink is supposed to launch in India in a few months, and the setup for that is around 36,000 rupees, I think, to have one.
But before that, you already had, terminals. I know that I attended maybe the site classes 25 years back, and that was broadcast on UGC by satellite. So today, if you have a terminal and you have an understanding with ISRO that or any of the other satellite terminals, yes. Starlink is now bringing it to the common man. So instead of your mobile phone, I can today use a sat phone. But if I'm today looking at a school, let's say you take a school somewhere in Raichur, in some village in Raichur, I put a satellite terminal there. And the school today has connectivity for the world. Anyone can give a lecture to that school from anywhere in the world. The best technologies the school comes to know, which maybe someone is not willing to go there. He will say, no, I can't go there. It's, 8 hours from Gulbarga. There's no water there. You somehow put a sat terminal with power and, the children and staff can see everything going on.
If someone wants to put such a sat terminal in some remote village in India, how should he go about it, he or she?
I'm not the best person, but I definitely think that there are organizations which can help you.
Can ISRO's in-space help?
Maybe ISRO's in-space, or maybe there are other, ISRO is on the satellite testing, but there could be definitely other organizations which could help you, put these satellite terminals in space. It's not a very...
Are these private organizations, or are these only connected to the government satellite for the satellite hubs?
I think there is also companies like Hughes which are working for.
What's the name of the company, sir?
Hughes, HUGHES, Hughes Telecom.
Okay.
Yeah. But then I know it could take a little searching, but there are companies which could help you put these terminals in place.
So they're called satellite terminals.
Yeah, it's like almost like putting a dish antenna in your house.
Got it. Is this just like the satellite cable channels, or is it some sort of two-way communication, little different?
I think it could be two-way also, but there might be some some time delays or something, but it should be possible. I mean, today you look at cable TV; it's gone to the remotest village in India. I still remember going to my village when I was in college, and maybe one house had the TV, and 100 people used to crowd in when Ramayana or Mahabharata used to be there. So today the same thing possibly could be done by a sat terminal, and you put it in a school there.
Okay, so tell us one challenge that you faced during your career. Now you have decades of experience. You are a stalwart in your field. In the process of all the things that you have achieved, tell us about one story where you came across failure and what made you get up and do more.
I mean, look, in the professional career, there are always places that you win and you lose. But when you go through this, you also always understand that the end user has specific requirements that he wants you to do it. In aerospace and defense, there are very specific requirements. It might seem odd for you later on, but then he goes back and tells you that, look, this is the reason why I want it. I can't do certain testing, or I have to do this comparison. I want these graphs.
Trust the process.
Yeah.
Trust the process.
You have to talk to the end. The end user is in many times knowledgeable on what he wants. You are selling a car, but you may not know that that man who is driving the car is driving it in a village, where the nearest petrol bunk is 200 kilometers away. So he is bothered about a car with a good rugged car which can run in a village, which will not fall down with a slight rain, and which has a good fuel indication, so that it will tell you immediately that the fuel is low. He can go and top it up. So you have to keep the end user in mind. There's no use giving him a sophisticated electronics car which he has to keep in a garage at 25 degrees in the village. No, it's not that. So at the same time, on technical, there are very specific requirements that they go through. I remember quoting for an RTD about 40 years back. RTDs for measurements in ISRO. The cost of the RTD was $20,000 at that time for about 200 or 300 RTDs. The cost of testing this was $25,000 again. Because of the way that ISRO said that each and every one of those 200 RTDs have to go through 25 tests. And if it fails in any one test, it has to be rejected. So you can imagine that the way, and they had given a very detailed list of tests. This has to be done by standard laboratories. It cannot just be done in your house. And they paid for this. But then when you go to them and you say that, look, this temperature, this satellite, this sensor goes into my satellite, which is going to remain in space for 15 years. So I want my sensor to be perfect. So that's the way that, it goes about it. And then you realize that, in space and defense, there is absolutely no compromise. If they say that they want it at 200 degrees, it is 200 degrees. I mean, I'm the same thing in defense also. If the Navy says that it has to be tested, it has to be tested. If the Air Force says that it's going to be tested tomorrow in LCA, you can't have the LCA failure. So it goes through brutal environmental testing anywhere.
So besides the testing that you're an expert in, and what you're still involved in what other capacities are you involved in aerospace and automation, sir?
I also look at the fact that today, and my passion over the last 40 years has been also an industry institute connect. I have seen that other than maybe the tier 1 institutes, the IITs, and maybe to an extent the NITs, there is a huge disconnect between what is taught in the college and what is expected from the industry. So I'm looking at connecting with colleges and saying that, look, is this what the industry wants? Learn from the industry, what is it that you want? What is it that you should teach? How should you train the student so that his induction time in the industry comes down from 2 years to 6 months? So correct. The faculty has to be up to date. The student has to be up to date. Tell them what are the opportunities for both of them, because sometimes both of them do not know where do you learn. So, for example, now I told them that you had the Skill Summit in Bangalore, you had the Bangalore Tech Summit. Visit those places, see what's going on in technology. Visit an HAL or a BHEL or anything to see what's going on practically. If you are teaching a power plant, please visit an actual power plant and understand what's going on there. You can't just sitting in an AC room understand the actual situation on a steel plant. I have gone in a steel plant. I have walked around in steel plants. It's 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers on a rolling mill. Actually, you have to walk down. So, you can't just sit in a control room and no, I'll run the rolling mill from here. You have to know the actual. You're talking of steel melting at 2000 degrees. How are you going to measure it? How is that cable going to run? And in a power plant, 6 stories, 7 stories of control room. So unless you as a faculty, you as a student see this actual situation, at the same time realize that it's a multidisciplinary thing. You have to know everything. Second is look at the fact that there are No 9 to 5. All that you might say that government job, 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. I have seen ISRO scientists at 10 in the morning. I met a scientist some years back, and he was a very senior scientist, and he was looking, very bleary-eyed. And I asked him what happened. He says, Rajshekhar, we had the satellite testing. I went home today morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, only to freshen up. And I have come back at 10 o'clock because by evening 5 o'clock, I have to sign off the documents. So, time doesn't wait. If the satellite launch time is fixed, I have heard from them saying that even if the Prime Minister or President is coming, no, we will go ahead with our, schedules. So in the same way.
I did 2 months in ISRO Ahmedabad in 2002 during my college project. When I was also studying in IIT Surathkal, I went to Ahmedabad and worked under faculty there, some CNC machines and making rocket parts. It's a very rewarding experience, just being on campus and feeling the energy of all the vibrance that space exploration and aerospace can bring is just fantastic. Sir, before we wrap up this podcast for today, I want you to do two things, sir. One, message for the next generations who want to pursue something in technology. It doesn't have to be engineering, but someone who is interested in technology, what advice would you give them? That's the first question.
The first thing is always ready to learn. I mean, even after 40 years, I am now studying wireless to find out how an accelerometer communicates. So because technology evolves. It's like today, when the first phone when I bought was a 3310. Today I use a smartphone, but now I have to learn how to use a smartphone with all its features.
Always learn, absolutely.
How do I use Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube? Is something when I used the 3310 40 years back, I never imagined that I would be using LinkedIn and Facebook today. So you have to upgrade with technology, be in touch, always be curious, always desire to learn, understand what is going on in technology, because technology doesn't wait for you, it goes ahead. And today the opportunities are that you don't just look at your field. And that's what I started from the beginning and saying that if you are an engineer in a company, keep the end user in mind and then design that way. Just because you are an incredible jack in Python or AIML, if you are designing today a simple mobile phone for someone on the road who just has to press a button to talk, he just has to press a button, nothing else.
Know your customer, absolutely. Know your customer.
So that's the way
absolutely.
that I do. Those are the two main advices that I give to anyone.
And one final one before we leave, sir. Now, failure, I feel, is part of everyday life, and success is about handling these failures, learning from these failures. What would you tell our people who feel young, whatever generation they're in, how can they handle failure and make excellence a part of their everyday life?
I mean, look at failures as a stepping stone. One of the best books that I read on this was, the autobiography of APJ. And when the first ASLV failed, his boss said, no, you step back, I will take the blame. And then when it succeeded, he put APJ in front and said, you are the director, you can say now that, this is mine and it has succeeded. So as the leader of the team, you should be willing to take failures on your chin. Whoever you are, but if you are part of a team, failures happen. There's nothing, perfect. Edison said, I tested 100 items and then I discovered the 101st that, tungsten was the best or whatever. So the question is, understand that failures will happen in life, whether it's academic, you drop a paper, it's not going to be the end of life. All this, shocks me when you say that some student in Kota committed suicide because he didn't get NEET or something. It's not the end of your life just because, you failed one exam. It's all, I would also look at very clearly, parental pressure sometimes is just too much. People should understand that just because he did not by 1 mark get into a JEE, it's not going that his life is going to be a failure. Today, the best example is when Dr. Somnath said all the people who are working in ISRO are not from the IITs or the NITs, from tier 2 or tier 3. So you're not going to be a failure because you did not get into an IIT. And today the options are much more.
Your point is noted, sir. One final bonus question before we wrap up for today. So I'm so glad that you are part of the MoHOPE podcast with the vision of peace on Earth and humanity on Mars, more hope for dreams of tomorrow. On these lines, I believe having a grand vision is one of the best ways to have meaning in life. What do you think is the most important thing in living life?
Live life without excess expectations. The moment you have expectations and, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, then it starts, heavily weighing on you. You take life as it comes and then keep learning from life, technically, mentally, emotionally, everything that comes, it should be a learning curve.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you so much. Your key points of keeping on learning, being curious, and knowing the customer, knowing who we are creating for is noted. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope our audience benefits. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you, Abhishek. It was a great privilege talking to you. I hope the audience liked it. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.